recorded on the other section.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, so I just wanted to share this one. But I think I screwed up in this class too one time, but I couldn't find it, but it was easier to do than the other. Nice hair, Troy.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah. It does look like a giant mushroom. Hey, then I got your email. I haven't been able to, but I've seen it a couple of times on my inbox. I never replied to it. I'll do it soon.
Oh yeah, no worries.
Yeah, but I think it was kind of like to my, I replied to my comment on the investment. But
Yeah, it was in reply. Yeah.
okay. I'll take a look at it. I have a feeling that we're all going to be watching TV until the wee hours. All right, 56. We have 12 people online. I guess 11 and we have 2 in person. I was kind of afraid I was not going to get anybody in person. But here we are. So we are 4 classes away from the final, like believe it or not. I think something good that's going to happen for you guys in this final is number 1, you have the final, you have a final right there on Blackboard that you should look at it. It probably would not have made any sense if you had looked at it before today, but after today, it should start making sense. So you know the kind of questions that is going to hit you, so you can start preparing the right way. We're going to have also a week in between the last class and the final exam, so that gives you sometimes to mature, to chew the problem, to chew the material, and that gives you time to ask me questions, and I can make videos, meet with you, do Zoom, one-on-ones, 3-on-1, whatever we need to do. So, and finally, the material it builds on itself. So what we needed for this exam is what we needed for exam number 2. So the more we practice those things, the better prepared you guys are going to be for the final. Studying for the makeup tomorrow is actually studying for the final. Okay, so capital budgeting, which is the point of this chapter, is how do we make really important decisions at the company level? And not just should we buy this car or the other, should we list the boss's car or not? Like really important things, and they involve a lot of money, very important for the future of the company, and long term, not just something that's going to affect the company tomorrow and that's it. You'll notice that some letters are bigger than other letters here, and they're in green, so that means that that's what you need to pay attention to. So the process to do capital budgeting or decision making in projects is somehow simple, 5 steps.
Professor?
Yeah, oh, I'm not sharing it.
Yeah.
Just making sure that you guys were paying attention. Now, how come it's always you, the one that notices that? So we have 5 steps. Calculate cash flows. There's 1. We did that in actually the exam number 2. We took a look at that. We did VAT, we did depreciation, etc. Step number 2, assess the riskiness of those cash flows. Step number 3, what is the WACC? We did that in the last chapter. What is the cost of capital? And then we're going to use 1 or 2 tools, net present value or internal rate of return. And it's obvious that I want you to use net present value, not the internal rate of return, to decide whether a project is good or not. The rules are very simple. If NPV is bigger than 0, we take the project, we do it, it's a good project. Or if the internal rate of return is bigger than the WACC. Last class, we talked about, we had projects, they have different returns and have different costs. And we said, well, if the return is going to be 15% and the cost of it is only 10%, then we take it. So it's the same concept. Terminology. Independent project is a project whose cash flows is not affected by the cash flow of the other. So we can do one or the other. We can do both. A mutually exclusive project is a project that we can do one or the other. We cannot do both. And it could be because we don't have money to do both, or we cannot be in two places at the same time, kind of project. We cannot change the heating in our house to both solar and wind, and that's about it. Anyway, but you get the point. I love how finance people come with really cool names or terms. Projects can have cash flows that are normal or not normal. We call normal when we have an investment, a cash flow negative at the beginning. We pay for something, like in a bond, in order to get something in exchange. Cash flows that are positive later on. So normal cash flow is negative, followed by a bunch of positive. It could be negative, 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 and then a bunch of positive, in case that it takes us 2 or 3 years to build this plant or to get this project going. And non-normal are cash flows when it's negative, then positive, positive, then a negative, and then another positive, positive, and then another negative. So imagine a project in which we will have to make a significant investment every 2 or 3 years to upgrade, to change, to do maintenance, etc. Those could happen. The formula for net present value, if you think about it, this summation is basically summation of future cash flows. It's the same formula that we had for dividends. It's the same formula when we had dividends here in the numerator, and we had R minus G here. It would give us the price of the company, right? That would be P0. Now, net present value is the sum of all the cash flows that the project is going to have in the future. But this formula is an old friend of ours. So let's take a look at two cash flows, two projects, project L and project S. And I'm kind of going to give it away, the way I look at projects the first time I see the cash flows. We have the years, and these projects will likely be mutually exclusive, so we have to choose between project L or project S. So both projects are about the same size, right? $100, $100 million, $100,000 to do it. So size is not an issue. They're about the same size. But take a look at the timing of the cash flows. Project L is what I call backloaded, because most of the cash flows are coming in years 2 and 3. And project S is the opposite. It's front-loaded. The cash flows are coming in years 1 and 2. So size of the project and timing of the cash flows. In this column here, we're going to use it later on today. It's just the difference between the cash flows every year. So same investment, so 0 difference. The difference between project L and S is minus 60 for year 1, which then turns to 60 and 10. We have done this before, so this should not be anything new. To calculate the net present value, we are supposed to bring every cash flow to today. So we can do it one by one, in which we take this $10 1 year to make it, turn it into 909. This $60 2 years at the WACC of 10% becomes 49. $80 3 years at the WACC of 10%, 60. And then we add them all up. We can add them all up because this guy's already times 0, and we just put them all in times 0. Or we use Excel, and in Excel, we do the NPV function, right? Those cash flows. but we do not include cash flow zero because it's already in time zero. And project L is $18.79. That's the MPV. Oh, and we'll talk about what it means in a second. Project S, we do it the same way, either cash flow by cash flow, year by year, or we put them all on Excel. And the MPV of project S is 19.98 with almost 20. So the MPV of project S is.
How do you go from like the 20 to the 1502, like 50 to 4132?
So this $20 are expressed in dollars for year 3. So this is not a bird in the hand, it's a bird in the bush.
Okay.
3 wishes away. So we need to do present value.
Oh, okay.
So we PV of 10%, 3 years, no payment, future
Gotcha.
value 20. Yeah. So if it is in green, it's because it's important. The MPV tells us how much richer we are by taking this project. If we take project, I don't remember the letter L, it was L was $20, the other one was 19 or something like that, or 18, is how many dollars, how much richer do I get? So what are the decision? So the rationale is that how much richer do I get? My net gain in wealth. And this gain in wealth could be negative because if the MPV of the project is negative, I will become poorer. If projects are independent, accept every project that has an MPV bigger than 0. Every project that makes me richer is a good project. I'll be looking for projects like that. MPV bigger than 0, I'll take it. I'll take it until I run out of projects like that. If projects are mutually exclusive, I'm going to accept the project that makes me the richest. So if one project gives me $2 and the other project gives me $1, I'll take a $2 project all the time. End of story. It's as simple as that, and it doesn't have any more. That's it. Really, if you remember anything about today, that's that. The way to make a decision about 2 projects is MPV, and the highest MPV wins. So let's get to work. Let's go to Excel and open a blank slate in Excel. And we're going to work on some of the projects from the back of the book, but it's so little the data that we needed to write in that I basically I'm going to start from scratch. So you guys can open your Excel. So problems 11.1 to 11.5 are basically based on one project. Oops.
Did you share a file for this, or are we just making our own?
We're making our own from scratch. So slow me down if I'm going too fast. They're giving us the WACC. The WACC is 9%. And they're giving us the cash flow. They say that cash flow 0 is going to be minus 65 million or 65,000. Project, and then followed by 9 cash flows of 12,000. Awesome. I'm going to put this guys on dollar sign here, not on the top ones. This guy is going to be dollar signs. Could have been the millions also. And we need them all the way to 9. So I'll give you a few seconds for you to look at that. And we're supposed to calculate the NPV. So how much richer are we because we're taking this project? And the way we do this is we start with the cash flow 0. We don't need to do anything with that because that one is already in time 0. And we add NPV over parentheses 9%, which is the WACC, comma, the rest of the cash flow. Close parentheses. So far, so good.
Can you go back to the formula for a second?
Yeah.
So what is this problem asking?
That's a great question. They all ask you the same. What should we take this project? And if I give you two projects, which one is that?
Okay, and then those numbers are given, the 65?
Yeah.
Okay.
The only thing that we calculated here was this. So Chris is making a good question here. So where all these numbers were given? Well, they were given here, but in the final exam, you're gonna have to calculate the WACC. That was from chapter 10. And we're gonna have to calculate the cash flows as well. So I'll give you, the company needs to buy a machine, the machine's gonna cost this much, we need to modify, we need to do this and that. So we're gonna have to build each one of these components. Matthew, are you there?
Yes, I'm here, Professor.
All right, so the NPV is 6,943.
Yes.
And my mother is on the line from Chile, from the nursing home, and she wants to know what does it mean. Can you explain that to her?
Can you explain it to her?
I mean, I can explain it to her, but she's gonna forget it. That's the problem. But let's assume that she doesn't have that she doesn't forget stuff. How would you explain this to a lay person?
I don't know.
We just saw it on the slides 2 minutes ago. Colin Brown, not Colin Sotomayor.
Yep, I'm here.
What does the 6,943 mean?
I'm not too sure either.
Can I take a guess?
Yes, go for it.
Okay, so you have negative $65,000 and then there's like 9% growth over the 9 periods of 12,000, and then like that added together is what you have left.
Okay, so yeah, so what does that mean? That is positive.
This project nets you $6,940.
I'm richer, but $6,943. If I take this project, I'm going to be richer. By how much? Exactly 6,943 is the net gain in wealth. All right, questions about how we calculate this?
How does the walk like come into play with this? So like is the 65,000, that's like an expense that is involved in?
Right, so this is how much I have to pay to get this. This could be I need to invest in machines, I need to buy land, and then I'm planting trees and getting
Money back,
whatever. So whatever those are. If you add them up, if you add the cash flow without discounting, without considering the time value of money, so this is, you look at it, 108,000.
Mhm.
So he would say, oh, somebody that doesn't study finance would say, well, the project cost me 65 and I'm going to get 100 and some. Oh, I'm going to be $50,000 richer. No way, because this $12,000 here are nowhere close to being $12,000 because they're so far away. It's a bird in the bush.
Okay.
So we're basically calculating the present value of all these guys to here. Matthew, you good now?
Yep.
If you ever meet my mom, you can tell her that. I may go see her for Christmas. We'll see. Okay, let's go back to the slides. and keep on rolling. So the other tool in your toolbox, we're going to talk about 4 tools today, is the internal rate of return. So the internal rate of return, in a sense, is similar to this expected return that we're going to get in the stock market. If the expected return in Yahoo or Yahoo is a thing in Microsoft is 2%, I should buy it or not. Now, it is the same formula, but we're gonna fix it or set it at 0, and we're gonna try to find what is the rate that turns those cash flows into 0, meaning what equals the investment, the 65 that we put down, with all the cash flows that come afterwards. So the way you do this is we go to our file again, and luckily it's very easy to do. There's a function called internal rate of return, IRR. We open parentheses, and we include all those cash flows. And you should get 11.57%. You guys good?
And what does that formula mean in terms of these numbers again?
So this is the rate that makes the MPV go to 0, meaning like this is the return. In a way, the yield to maturity of this cash flows. Actually, let me show you this example. Maybe this will be a good way to illustrate this. So, and I'd like to do this because this illustrates how the internal rate of return is very similar, or is exactly the same thing as the yield to maturity in a bond. So let me escape here. And I'm going to copy this so we can actually do it together. So I'm going to call this sheet bond problem. So, preparation for the exam tomorrow. Let me pick on Joe. If I give you this problem that I have on the screen, and I ask you what is the yield to maturity?
So much.
What is it? I don't know. Joe, are you there with me, or did I lose you?
Yeah, I'm not too positive.
Okay. Hayden, you want to give it a shot?
So would you multiply the 1,000 times the 1 plus 0.09%, or is that already the 1,334 that should be multiplied times 1 plus whatever?
So this is a bond, right? So this is an instrument that is selling for $1,100 today, that for 10 years is going to give us a coupon payment of 9%, and at the end of the 10 years is going to give us $1,000. So we already know what the cash flows will be. So how do we calculate the yield to maturity on a bond?
Can you use the rate function?
Yeah. All right, walk me through it. Redeem yourself. That's very good. Go for it, dude. Go for it. Great.
All right, so equal rate.
Yeah. NPR, how many periods?
10.
Yes.
Uh,
What is the payment that this bond gives you year after year?
oh, is it 90 or 9? Is it 9% of 1,000?
Yes.
Yeah.
Be confident, man. Like, own it. Like, go for it.
And then present value would be 1,134.20.
No, but yes, but no. What's missing?
Negative?
Yes. It's gonna be negative. Hey, remember that?
Oh, yeah.
So it's minus 1134.2, right? And then what's the future value at the end of this bond?
Wait, why do we make that negative?
Because you don't have it anymore.
Because that's the price of the one, that's how much you need to pay for the bond in order
Oh.
to get deposited cash flows of $90 a year plus, but then you get at the end, hidden.
Is it the par value of 1,000?
Yes, absolutely. So this is basically it, right? And yes. So this is 7.08%. Now think about this. Think about the bond as a project. The bond as a project, it cash flows 0, 1, all the way to 10. And you guys are gonna fill this thing together with. I'm gonna make it a little bit bigger so you can see it. Can you see it? Well, it's fine, you can see it. So I would like to put the lines here. So what would be the cash flow in time 0? Let's go for Yanni.
Would it be 1,134?
Absolutely. What sign?
Negative?
How about cash flow for year 1? Yanni?
I'm not entirely sure, but would it be 1,000?
The other Colin? Colin Sotomayor?
Me? Would you take 1,134.2 times 1 minus the rate, or the yield to maturity?
Nope. Hayden, come to the rescue here. What happened? You just did this, man. You just calculated the yield to maturity, so you have to know this. So Jenny's right. The first year we pay 1,100 for the bond. But why? Why would people pay 1,100 for a bond? Because they're gonna get $90. $90. Oh, not like that.
So we should be looking at those as like payments, like those cash flows in particular.
They are payments. Exactly what they're. They're payments. So this is the way the cash flows are looking, but this is not it, right? There's one more cash flow at the end, and Hayden said it well when he calculated the yield to maturity. It is this 1,000. So at the end,
Is it always calculated with the coupon rate of the par value of the bond?
yes,
Always?
it's
Okay.
always with the par value, it's never with the price. So the total cash flows, I'm just adding them up just to get them in one place. They're here. You guys familiar with, you okay with these numbers, right?
How did you get the 1,090?
It's just the sum of these two.
Oh, okay,
Because the last year we get the coupon and we get the,
got it.
so the internal rate of return is what rate makes an investment of $1,134 and and all these other cash flows equal to an NPV of the zero. So what is that rate that equals this cash flow? 7.08. So the internal rate of return is similar to the yield to maturity. Remember, in the yield to maturity, we asked, well, how much should bondholders expect from this bond? What should be the return on their investment? Well, the yield to maturity will be, and we calculate, right? It's the same concept. All right, let's go back to our slides here. And we calculated already the internal rate of return. So the rationale for the internal rate of return is that if it is bigger than the WACC, then the project return exceeds the cost. Therefore, there's going to be something left for us. So we should accept the project when the internal rate of return is bigger than the WACC and reject it when it's the other way around. So if the projects are independent, meaning we can take as many as we want, we can take both, both. We accept both projects because both projects in this case had an internal rate of return bigger than the WACC of 10%. And we're talking about the project in the slides, not the project that we're doing on Excel. If the projects are mutually exclusive, we would accept S because it has a higher internal rate of return than L. So let's refresh our memory about which ones were they. So S had a 23% rate of return and L only 18%. Does this make sense?
What's the difference between S and L?
They had different, the cash flows were different.
Okay. Is that information given?
Yep.
Okay.
Okay. So what happens is that MPVs, or the amount of how much richer I get by taking this project, is actually a function of the WACC. At different WACCs, I get different MPVs. So these are, and you can redo these calculations on your own in Excel. When the WACC is 0, the MPV of L is 50. The MPV of S is 40. So if I were to ask, and I'm going to ask Nathan, which project is better? Nathan?
Sorry, I'm here.
Which project is better?
I don't know. S?
Why?
I don't know.
Looks like you're left with a positive number.
Jacob, who?
Yeah.
Which project is better?
I'm not entirely sure either.
All right, can you work something out here? What if I ask you?
I think you said that if the NPVL is greater than the WACC, then that's one you want, but it decreases every time. So I'm not sure.
What is MPV? What was MPV? Matthew was explaining to my mom, right? We decided MPV is what? What does MPV measure? What does it mean to have an MPV of 50? Can anybody explain what this means? What does this?
It's an MPV net profit. So if the MPVL of the first one, that's $50 net profit.
It's not profit. So what did we say? But it's similar to that. It's how much richer I get. How much richer you get. How much richer you get. What is MPV?
Isn't it like the measures of like your inflow and your outflow?
Right. So measure how much richer you get. If you take project L, how much richer you get, Troy?
Don't you get $4 less rich?
Okay, MPV measures how richer you get if you take this project. Okay, let's go back.
Is that for negative?
That 4 is negative, yeah.
Okay.
So let's do this again. Remember that? Net gain in wealth, how much richer you get? So here we have a lot of MPVs, actually 10. So how much richer you get, Troy, if we take project L?
$50 richer.
Yes, absolutely. But all the time. You get $50 richer in any case, every time?
No, you have to like from the first one to the second one, you get $11 richer and etc.
But what makes the change?
The whack.
Right. So we got something here. So depending on the whack is how much richer I'm going to get, right? Right, Troy?
Yes.
So the higher the whack, what happens with my wealth?
The higher the whack, the lower it gets.
Right. And can we say the same thing for both projects? Is that true for both projects?
Yeah.
So the higher the whack, the lower my richness, the lower the MPV, right? So rule number 1, that's pretty good that we figured this out.
Would you add those numbers up?
So how are you gonna, can you tell which project, if the WACC is 10%, which project is better?
Yes.
Project S. If the WACC is 15%, which project is better?
Project S.
Project S, right? So the best project is actually a function of the WACC. We cannot say there's not one project that is always better. So this was a painful lesson both for you guys and for me, but I hope you got the point across. There's not a project that is better than the other one unless you consider the WACC. So if the WACC is low, it seems to be that project L is better. Actually, if the WACC is 0 or the WACC is 5%, project L is better. Let's go back to the internal rate of return. The internal rate of return did not say anything about this about the WACC. The internal rate of return said project S is always better. Period. End of story. And we just saw that that's not really true. Depending on the WACC, depending on the situation, on the economy, this is going to change. So what happens is this: when the projects are independent, the NPV and the internal rate of return are both going to lead you to the same decision, and it's going to be a good decision. There's not going to be any contradiction between the two. This is project L, the project that I was torturing Troy with. So when the WACC is 0, we get $50 richer. When the WACC is 5%, we get $33 richer, right? So we see that the NPV line kind of goes down as the WACC goes up. So this is a WACC of 10%, a WACC of 15%, etc. Somewhere here, actually at 18.1, which is the internal rate of return, the NPV becomes negative, and we become poorer and poorer by taking the project. So the rule for the NPV is, as long as I'm making money, take the project, which happens right at this line. Below, I lose money. Up, I make money. The rule for the internal rate of return says, as long as the internal rate of return is bigger than the WACC, take the project. Where does this happen? In this area here, and it's negative on this side. So internal rate of return and the NPV both tell you to accept the project. So, questions about that? No? Now let's look at this slide. In this slide, we have project L and project S. So this slide is basically a graph of the same numbers that we were looking and discussing with Troy a second ago. So it happens that somewhere, and in this case it's exactly at 8.7% of WACC, the two projects change. And L was good here, right? Remember that when the WACC was low, L was really good project, and that switches, and it becomes S, the better project. So the MPV is sensitive to the WACC. The internal rate of return, no. The internal rate of return says like always, this project is better, which is not what we want. How do we find that crossover rate? This is where we use the delta between the cash flows, and we calculate the internal rate of return of those. So let's go ahead and do that. Oh no, we need the other cash first. So typical concept question for the final exam is this one. And I ask you at the beginning of the class to look at the cash flows and look at the size of the cash flows. Was one project much, much bigger than the other? And look at the timing differences. Does one project give you the money back earlier than later? Why would those types of projects create crossover profiles? That's a good concept question for the final. Okay. A few criticisms to the internal rate of return. Number one, it doesn't take into account the WACC, right? Number two, the internal rate of return assumes that all the cash flows from the project are invested at the same internal rate of return. So imagine that a company has a project that is outstanding, a project that has an internal rate of return of 50 or 70%, like really, really good project. It assumes that all that money is reinvested at that rate, when in reality, that's probably not very likely because companies have one project that is really good, the next project is not so good, and the following project is like even worse. So instead of reinvesting that money at the internal rate of return, is more realistic to assume that it goes at the WACC. So hence a hybrid tool was created and is called very creatively the modified internal rate of return. And the modified internal rate of return takes that into consideration. So reinvest the cash flows at the WACC instead of at the IRR. Graphically, it does something like this. So we have the $100 of the project, negative, the 10, the 60, and the 80. I think this is project L, project L. So the internal rate of return, we just calculated everything down here. The modified internal rate of return takes, well, this $10 at 10%, which is the WACC, all the way to year 3. So 2 years. Future value, $10, 10%, 2 years. This 60, which is $60, 1 year to go to year 3 at 10%. And this 80, which are already in year 3. So add them all up, 80, 60, 12. And it says, what rate would equal this $100 that I put in with the 158 that I get at the end? And that is the modified internal rate of return. Luckily, we don't have to do all these calculations in Excel. We can do it directly. So what we need to do is use a function called MIRR. We're going to put the cash flows, and then we're going to assume that both rates, finance rates and reinvestment rate, is the WACC. So let's go ahead and do it in our file. modified internal rate of return. MIRR. We're going to put all the values. We're going to say comma, both finance rate and the investment rate are the WACC. So, well, the internal rate of return was 11.57%. The modified internal rate of return is a much more modest 10.24%. Questions or comments? All right, let's do.
Sorry, Professor, I have a question.
Yeah.
So the WACC is the reinvest rate as well. So it's both of them.
Both of them, yes.
Okay.
Yep. Let's do probably 11.6, and I'll type the cash flows so you guys can have it. They're really very basic. So we have two projects, project A and project B. They have cash flows 0, 1, 2, and 3. Cash flow 0 for project A is minus 25, followed by $5, $10, and $17. Your mind should already be thinking like, well, this project is backloaded. The cash flows tend to happen on year 3, like the bulk of the money is coming in year 3. So that's one. Project B is minus 20. Okay, it's a little bit smaller, but not half of it or 1/3 of it. And minus 20, then $10 in year 1, $9 in year 2, and $6 in year 3. So this is the typical front-loaded versus back-loaded problem. So that's going to create some issues. So the question here is, what is the NPV at the following works? So let's do 5%, let's do 10%, let's do 15%. Right, A and B. So the NPV of project A at 5% will be initial investment, cash flow 0, plus NPV, open parenthesis, the rate, just put it here, comma, this cash flows here. I'm going to anchor C2 because I'm going to drag this to the side, and I'm going to anchor this purple, the range of cash flows as well. So hopefully it did it right. I think I need to start from scratch. I did something. So initial investment plus NPV, rate, comma, I'm just going to anchor this, anchor that. It should be dollars, not percent. now when I move it to the right, it should be okay.
At 351%.
No, this should be this is dollars. But you just
Oh,
change the
but-
format. Yeah.
Okay, got it.
Okay, so now I'll look for project B. Same thing, the cash.
How did you get the 58 and the 191?
So the MPV for the project A is basically the initial cash flow, the $25, plus the net present value of the other cash flow 1, 2, and 3, which is the B2 to F2, and at the rate of 10% in this case. So this is the rate, and this is the cash. So now we do minus 20, which I'm going to anchor right away, plus NPV, the rate is 5%, comma, this cash flows, close parentheses, and I'm going to anchor this, so I can drag it. I'm not doing good today. The initial investment plus NPV of the 5%. Come on, I'm sure you guys finished this already. I'm still looking around.
It's 287.
Hmm?
I think the answer is 287.
Yep, absolutely. $2.87, $1.04.55. So, Colin Brown, which project is better?
Depends at which walk, right?
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect answer. If the rate is 5%,
If the rate is 5%, I'd say project A is better.
you're very close to getting $1 million from me. How about a 10%?
10%, I'd say project B.
How about a 15%?
Still project B, I'd say.
Yep, absolutely. You got it. If I ever make $1 million, I'll send them your way.
Sweet.
So that it makes sense, right? So the higher the WACC, basically the lower the money, the poorer we become with both projects, but it affects the project A in a bigger way than project B. Why is it? Because the cash flows of project A are the bulk of it are at the end of it, while the bulk of the cash flows for project B are at the front of it. So that's what explains that difference. If we had just simply said, okay, let's calculate the internal rate of return here, which we can do. Let's calculate internal rate of return for these two projects, A and B. We would not even have a spot to put the WACC, right? So the internal rate of return is just one answer, and that answer says IRR. And let's give it a couple more decimals. So according to IRR, Nathan, which is the best project?
B.
Why?
It's a higher rate of return.
Yeah, okay, would you take it?
Yes.
Would you take it if the cost of capital is 15%?
No.
Oh, no, right? So we would not take this project if the cost of capital is 15%, but we would take them if it is 10%. But IR says that always project B is better than project A, right? So we looked at a different internal rate of return, the modified internal rate of return, right? And we were hoping that that would be better because it has the different reinvestment assumption. So the modified rate of return is MIRR. The values are here, and says finance rate and reinvestment rate. We're both going to be 5%. So I'm going to anchor the values on top, and I'm going to let the C9 and C9, the final rate and reinvestment rate, I'm sorry, go unlock. So when the WACC is 10%, the modified internal rate of return is 10.85, and it goes to 11.9, and the WACC is 11%. I mean, when the WACC is 15%. So we can calculate that for project B. Values are here. And finance rate will be 5%. 5%. Plus parentheses, and again, I'm going to lock this or anchor it. The modified internal rate of return always thinks the project B is better. So even though it's a better tool, it doesn't recognize that at a lower rate, the project that makes me richer is project A.
So it's unable to recognize like the differences at different WACC percentages.
So it gives us a conflicting. I'm trying to show you that internal rate of return, modified internal rate of return are useful pieces of information, but they're not the ones that we need to make the decision. Do we take this project or the other? The tool that we want is the net present value. Okay, two more tools, and then we're done. The payback period. Assuming you have a boss that is as annoying as I am, and he asks you, okay, when are we going to get our money back? We just put a bunch of money in this project. When do we get it back? When can I count that the money is back in the company? That's a great question, but there's not a reason to make a decision. Just because a project gives you the money back very quickly is not really all that great a decision tool. I want to make a project that makes me the richest. That's the project I want to do first. I don't care if it takes a year, or if it takes 2 years, or if it takes 3. I'll take the project that makes me richer first. So this is for project L. What we're going to do is we're going to put the cash flows. They're already there. And then we're going to do a cumulative cash flow. So we're going to say, well, we put 100 down, right? So year 0, we're out of 100. But don't worry, because by the end of year 1, we're going to get 10 back. So that means that we're gonna have $90 behind, right? We're gonna be $90 out. By year two, we're gonna get 60 more, right? So we're gonna be out 30. And somehow, somewhere in between 2 and 3, I'm gonna be okay because I'm short $30, but I'm getting 80 the following year. I'm gonna end up with a positive 50, right? So how long does it take to get my money back? Well, 2 years, because that's where the cash flows became positive, the cumulative ones, plus what fraction? Well, 30 divided by 80, okay? 2 years, because this is what finally I'm gonna turn over. And how long is it gonna take? Well, 30 divided by the 80 that I'm getting. Let's do that in our project 1. So we're supposed to calculate the cumulative cash flows. So I start the year $65,000 in the hole. By the end of year 1, I have $65,000 in the hole, but I get 12,000, so I'm only $53,000 in the hole. Bless you.
Thank you.
You guys with me here? So I keep dragging this, and I realize that by year 2, well, I was $53,000 in the hole. I get another 12, so I'm 41 on the hole. By year 3, I'm 29, then I am 17, 5. And so somewhere here, right, in between years 5 and 6, that's where I'm going to get my money back. Not at 5, because at the end of 5, I'm still $5,000 in the hole. And not at 6, because I'm already finishing ahead. So the way you do this, if you say, well, 5 years is the turning point. So it's 5 plus the fraction of this $5,000 that I have yet to recuperate, divided over how many thousands I'm getting the following year, which is 12. So 5.41 years, how long it takes? 5.42. Questions or comments about this one?
Does that mean that it's 5.42 years to go positive again?
Yeah, I get to the positive too. This is called payback period. It's funny because every project that I did in the real world with my bosses, there was always somebody in the room that would ask for the payback period. Completely irrelevant in many senses, but it is a good piece of information for people that are making, that have responsibility. So,
Could you just hover over that equation for the 5.4?
yeah. It's not really an equation per se, but I'm basically saying that this $5,000 here divided by the 12 is what's missing. If you look at the videos, I went kind of crazy and I did all kinds of logic statements, if, then, true, this, true, not, like to kind of automate this thing. It may not be worth it. You can copy those formulas from the videos if you want to. But, up to you. But it's literally no more than this. But here's a problem. We are adding $65,000 of year 0 with $12,000 from year 1, which are not addable because they're not on the same basis, right? So this cash flow, we simply can't do this. That's very great. It's really cute, 5.42, but that's not realistic because $12,000 5 years away from now is not $12,000. It's like maybe 6 or 7, who knows what. We need to calculate the present value. So on the slides, you'll have it that we have a discounted payback period, which takes into account the present value of all this cash flow. So we do the same thing, but first we calculate the present value of the cash flow. So let's just go ahead and do it. And with that, we'll call it a day. So present value of cash flows. The 65, we don't need to do anything because they're already expressed in dollars of today. That's times 0. What about this $12,000 that happened in year 1? Well, we need to calculate the present value of those guys. Present value at a rate of 9%, which was the WACC, comma, 1 period, comma. Is there any payment in this? No, the payment is 0, comma. And we're bringing this $12,000 to the present. I'm going to put a negative sign in this D3, or you can put a negative sign on the front if you guys want to, just to get a positive side, a positive thought. I'm going to anchor the rate. Calling Sotomayor, calling S. You good?
Yeah, I'm good. How do you do the automatic anchor?
You press F4.
F4?
Yeah, on top of the thing.
Okay.
It depends on, like, I have not figured a good way to do it on the HP laptops. To be quite honest, I need to Google that. In this, in the old-fashioned keyboards, it's easy because the function F4 is easy. So now I can drag this, and every time you drag, you want to make sure that you're doing it right? So I like to do the last one. So the present value of this 12,000, 9 periods at the right rate. So that looks okay. If you highlight a number of columns and then double click on the edge of it, you automatically adjust the width of the columns. So now I have this cash flow here, and I look at them, and I can calculate the cumulative cash flows again. Cumulative cash flows, cumulative discount, cash flows, which are going to be the same 65, but nothing happens for on the whole. And we apply the same logic. Well, after year 1, we're going to have the 65 and we were negative plus the 11,000 that we got. So instead of getting 12,000, we only get 11. So we're negative 53.9, and then we're going to drag this all the way over here. And if there's too much numbers, we can just get rid of the decimals here, or not. And now I see that it doesn't happen until the year 7 that the cash flows change from negative to cumulative cash flow to positive. So it is going to be at year 7.
Did you anchor something?
Hmm?
Did you anchor something in D15?
Here.
Oh, gotcha. Never mind. We're good.
Okay. So it is in year 7. So I'm going to put this 7 here. 7 plus the ratio of this $4,000 that I'm short over the $6,000 that I'm going to be getting in the future. 4605 divided by 6.2.4. So the answer is 7.76 years. So the discounted payback period is 7 years and 76.
Could you do the first payback period, or can you
Yeah.
show me that Excel
Yep.
again?
And I highlight the colors of the cash flow, so the 5,000 divided by 12.
So do you pick that by the
Because that's when it changed from negative
negative
to
to positive?
So I'm on the whole, right?
Mhm.
I'm on the whole, and on the whole, each year a little bit less on the whole. And
But it flips.
so by the end of year 5, I'm still on the whole. By the end of year 6, I'm out of the hole. So somewhere in between 5 and 6.
And did you put the 5 because it's happening in year 5?
Yep.
Okay.
Could you go back over that formula real quick
Which one?
for discounted payback?
It's the same principle. So let me put the same colors here. Was that a Colin, right? Or
Yeah, that was me. I just did the cells instead of like putting in the numbers, and I got a different answer.
maybe a parenthesis or something. So basically, this is good. The top one, the not discounted, but it's kind of wishful thinking because $12,000 10 years from now is really like not $12,000. So this is more realistic once we calculate the present values of the cash flow. So we do the same thing. I'm 65 in the whole, 54, 43, 34, 26, 18, 11, 46, and I know that it is right after year 7, but before year 8, that I get all of my money back. This is a lot of calculation for something like, okay, so now you're gonna get your money back in year 7 point something. But you're not gonna make a decision based on that, so like, it's a good thing to know, and your boss is gonna ask you that, but then what? So how do you make decisions? NPV and NPV. What does NPV mean? It means how much richer you get, your net change in wealth. Is the internal rate of return a good decision too? Not really, because it gets confused, right? It doesn't acknowledge different WACs. Can we get a better tool than the internal rate of return? Yes, the modified internal rate of return. Can we make decisions with that? Probably not. But the silver lining is that if the projects are mutually exclusive, both give you the same answer. They both give you the same decision if you can take them both. The only problem becomes when they're mutually exclusive. So if they're independent, I don't remember what I just said. If they're independent, you're okay. You can take either or both. That's fine. The problem is when you have to take only one. Guys, do you have questions?
Is this problem also to answer like which project's better, or like
Yeah.
is this only one project? It's only one project though.
So this is only one project, but this is just when are we gonna get our money back?
Okay. So after year 5, it starts becoming positive, and then at like 7,
Yeah.
it's like back or floating back.
So here we can calculate but we're gonna go. We can calculate the payback period of these two projects, but that should have no bearing in terms of the decision which project are you gonna take. Because you're gonna take
Because that's a more detailed.
you make decisions about what project to take based on this one. And you're gonna have to first tell me, just like I can't remember who, I think it was Colin or one of the last ones said like, well, it depends. Tell me what the WACC is and I'll tell you whether that's a better project is. All right, so we have time. We have a lot of time to work on this project. I posted a sample final, and I'm gonna post another document tonight that has some kind of like a cheat sheet for this. Not only for MPV and modified internal rate of return, but also for the next chapter that talks about the cash flow. So previous chapter, we talk about WACC. Here, we just assume it was given. We're gonna do a lot more problems next class about
Where it's not given.
about how to use NPV and internal rate of return. But for the following chapter, we're gonna kind of forget about NPV and WACC, we're just gonna talk about the cash flow. Right now, I just gave you the cash flow, so the next chapter is about this cash flow. And then we put all of it together. All right, people, whatever happens tonight, don't let it go to your heads. And keep talking to grandma or to the uncle that you have to the, I don't know. You need to keep talking to them. I'm sure
Thank
you
you.
have a crazy uncle somewhere.
Are you still doing the makeup exam tomorrow?
Yes, we have a makeup exam tomorrow.
Do you have
Thank you, Professor.
the room and time for that
We're gonna do it online.
online?
We have to log into Zoom and so find that literally I have like this much hope to get a room. So what I'm gonna email as soon as I get home is ask you guys to pick a comfortable place to be able to take the exam.
Thank you. Have a good one.
Yep. If you guys have questions, let me know.
Thank you for coming in. It's way easier like in person, I think.
Well,
Thank you. Have a good night.
thank you for coming in.